Fantastic.
And we are streaming live. Welcome to Project 13.5 here at Dubai English Speaking College. I am so excited to be welcoming my colleague and social media guru, Anya Svrdlin, who's going to be talking to us today about all things personal branding, alongside being our social media guru here at Dubai English Speaking College. She is also a teacher of media studies. And she's going to be talking to us about all of her academic knowledge when it comes to social media, but also what she knows works best in personal branding. We're aiming our discussion today a little bit about the career woman, but also in how we can be helping our young graduates on their journey post Dubai English Speaking College and preparing themselves for that first career aspirational job. Welcome, Ms. Svrdlin. Welcome, Anya. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm doing super well. I'm really excited to have this conversation. Today is kind of a wrap up. We've had 5 weeks of personal branding talks. I know we brought in many different professionals, but I feel like we saved the best for last. I am so excited for you to be sharing your tips, because what we know is that you're not just a teacher of media, you are completely immersed in this world of personal branding, and you use it so well in your own personal branding. So let's go right to the beginning, Anya. When did you know that this was what you wanted to be teaching? And when did you know that social media was really your calling?
So teaching sort of came to me at quite a young age. I do remember quite vividly pretending to teach, you know, playing with dolls, lining them up and having a board in, you know, in my bedroom. And my parents would walk past and I would just literally be pretending to take the register and, okay, today we're going to learn English or maths or whatever it was, which I think probably comes a little bit from my mum as well, who was a maths and physics teacher. And then my passion for media really came through when I started to study GCSE media studies in the UK. I'd really enjoyed maths up until this point, and I think had I not been maybe introduced to media, then I probably would have pursued down a similar path as my mum and gone down the mathematics route. But media studies was just something that I just really engaged with. It made sense to me. I really enjoyed every aspect of media. It was something that was so exciting. And back then it was still a very, very sort of relatively new subject. A lot of people wasn't really, you know, sure about it. But now, I mean, media is everywhere. You know, you cannot ignore the impact that television, you know, print media, radio, and more predominantly now social media has on its users. So it makes it an exciting subject to be a part of. And there's so much that we can take from it, that we can learn from it, and that we can use in our own to sort of strengthen, well, what we've been talking about these last few weeks, our personal brand. Is something that we can strengthen using social media strategies.
I completely agree with you, I know that we talk a lot about personal branding. I still feel like our graduating students think about it as something that you do as a profession, but doesn't really impact them on a personal level, or at least not yet. In talking to some of the professionals over the last few weeks, we've learned that some companies actually do look at social media. They do look at how the individual has branded themselves, whether it was consciously or unconsciously. I know that in talking with some of our professionals in the last few weeks, we also learned that some people have gotten the job because of the way that they've presented themselves on social media. What's your take when we think about our presence online and how it might either enhance opportunities or perhaps limit opportunities?
So there's sort of two questions there. let's start with the positive. I think social media is an excellent way to expose yourself and your brand to a much larger audience. So whatever the, perhaps your niche is, whatever product or service that it is that you can provide, or if it's just, even if you're trying to market yourself in terms of trying to explore new opportunities, social media, for example, LinkedIn is definitely a fantastic way of exposing your name, what it is that you're doing now, and if there's any new opportunities that you're searching for. So there's definitely lots of positives to take from that. And of course, how you market yourself is, in every means. It's the images that you're sharing, the videos, the sort of valuable content, and I'm really sort of emphasizing valuable content there, that you're providing and putting out. In terms of hindering, of course, social media can be used on a professional level, but it can also be used on a personal level. So something that was even, reminded to myself when I started my teaching qualification at Canterbury University was, as a teacher, you need to make sure that your social media content is PG in every essence. Any comment that you share, any comments that you leave behind that has your name in it. If somebody searches you, it's not just your profiles that come up, but it's your name that comes up to any comment that you have shared before. Any videos or images, they all come up. So we were all encouraged to have a kind of, social media cleanse, if you like. And there are images of perhaps, when you were younger and you were with your friends and maybe your fashion sense was a bit questionable, or, there may have been comments that you may have shared, which at the time might have been funny, but then, could be taken out of context for someone who perhaps doesn't understand what that comment was, regarding to. So I think social media can be a great help, but it can also be, something that could also hinder opportunities depending on how you are presenting yourself on these different platforms.
I want to bring it into the prescriptive do's and don'ts. I know that in speaking with some of our past guests, we talked about things like colors, the types of language we use, the environment that we portray. These are things about I think I would like to describe those as like the physical personal branding aspects. But what I'd like to talk about with you right now is putting your teacher of media hat on and looking at the theory of media and teaching of practice of social media. When you think about personal branding, and I know that when you're working with students and you're helping them to create those projects, that they need to be thinking about how they use the brand and how they spread the message of either the service or the product. What does the teacher of media have to say with personal branding and what students should be thinking about in learning more about it?
So, it depends when we're teaching, depends what we're teaching. We've worked on quite a few projects over the past few years. Most recently on the BTEC Media course, students were given a professional client brief. So they have to really look and understand the requirements of that brief and what is needed in the products that they're producing. So they do their market research, they do their audience research. A lot of that research then informs their ideas, which then later down the line does impact the brand that they produce in their products, and how they're meeting the requirements of their brief. So it really depends. When students are creating a personal brand, they really need to think about the industry that it is that they want to tap into. And depending on that industry will have an impact on the brand that they want to create for themselves, if it's going to fit. I
love that. And I asked you that question because I was hoping you would say this. So if we're thinking about those fresh graduates going out and helping them to understand how to use the branding, it's not just about them, it's also about tapping into doing that research of the industries, like you've just said, and understanding, well, wait a minute, if I do want to be working as an engineer in a very corporate environment with very, great man theory type leadership, then I really need to be making sure that my branding is aligned. I don't want to be this creative out of the box if that's where I want to be heading. However, if they're looking at more of a nouveau type industry where creativity is really needed, then of course they would want to be comfortable being a little more creative, because I know they'll be looking at things like that. And I know that in our past interview as well, when we were talking with Rosa, she said, even though you are working on becoming potentially a creative professional, we also have to think of the country, the host country that you're living in. And it's not just about the organization, it's also about, are you aware of the cultural values, the cultural ethics of the host country? Because it might be that we need a creative person, but we're also looking to make sure that the person we bring on the team won't embarrass the organization or embarrass themselves. How do you talk about things like this when you're teaching students to do that research for personal branding?
So, I mean, when we're teaching it in general for the subjects, we look at context a lot. We look at social, historical, cultural, and political context so that they understand what is going on in the production of any pre-existing products. So that then, of course, when they are thinking about themselves as a product and their personal brand, doing research into things like the cultural context of the country, of course, where they will be living and potentially working, but also more importantly, they need to think about if they align with that. I think you need to be, when it comes to your personal brand, I think you need to be your most authentic self. Be true to, I think you need to, ideally, you want to work within an industry and more specifically within an organization whose values align with your personal values. Then you have the best fit. Therefore, the personal brand that you're creating for yourself will be authentic, and the right organization, the right fit for you, you will easily fit into. So it depends, we do have students that will definitely be more suited to a corporate organization, and we have students who will be much better fitted within a creative organization. So it's really, it's an exploration of themselves as we are working through different projects. Some are more corporate based, some are more creative. They're starting to figure out their identity and who it is that they are and where they sort of fit into this whole landscape.
Wonderful, wonderful. Why do we need media studies? Why do you think it's an important subject to be learning about, to be teaching? And how do you see media studies as a helpful transition for those Project 13.5 graduates?
I think media has always been relevant. I think more so now than ever. I think it's a very contemporary subject. It deals with, the study of looking at various different issues and debates that are happening right now that is affecting them and their futures. Again, as I said previously, understanding, exploring different contexts is so important. And then, of course, it's the development of skills. There's so many intrapersonal and interpersonal skills that they can transfer into a variety of different industries when they finish media. We do have a lot of students that finish media, either A-level studies or finish BTEC creative media, that then end up either working in the industry immediately after, or they end up, studying a higher education course that is media related. But equally so, the research, the planning, the pitching of ideas, the communication, the technical skills, the production, the creative, all of those skills are transferable in most industries.
Incredible. Anya, what can you tell us about this industry that you think, Maria, the students, they really need to know this is the most empowering thing that personal branding can do for them, what would that be?
I think personal branding could rocket their careers ultimately. The brands that they make for themselves and how they distribute that on social media or other online platforms could expose them to so many more opportunities than if they were not using online social media platforms at all.
How do you see young graduates who look up to social media influencers? How do you see that this type of idolizing these social media influencers can either hinder or support them on that next journey for them?
I mean, they're not called influencers, you know, for no reason. They obviously do have an influence, but I think you shouldn't compare yourself to anybody else. I think we are all individuals and we all have the power to influence and to become influencers, but it depends on what it is what influence do you want to have? I think that's really what you need to think about is what is it you want to be known for, or what do you want your legacy to be, essentially. There are a lot of influencers out there that what's the influence? I think that's what they really need to think about.
What I'm hearing you say, I think the one word that comes to mind as I'm hearing you describe it is personal branding is transformational. It has an opportunity of really transforming not just your career, but also your prospects for those future career aspirations. I know that when we're helping our students preparing for that university application process, often we can be heard saying, be really careful about your presence online because the universities might be looking at those. How do you feel? Do you think that a social media presence can help with a personal statement or a college essay if the university does look out at their social media?
Oh, yes, 100%. You can, I mean, something that I've encouraged my media students to do is all of the amazing work that they're producing, all of these projects that they're working on, they have created a YouTube channel, they have a LinkedIn profile, they have a personal Instagram account, and then separate to that, they have their creative public accounts where they are sharing all the projects that they are working on. I have a student who is publishing all of the work that she's completing within sixth form, but there is also a multiple range of projects that she has produced outside of the classroom, which is exactly the sort of, you know, engagement and creativity you want to encourage within your students. And all I'm hearing is, I got home after college and then I worked on this video edit until the evening, and you know, and I'm like, that's it, this is your passion, you have found, you know, your career path, you want to go into TV and film production, and you are making TV and film products. And she's sharing this on her open public YouTube channel where she is exposing her skill set. So, you know, prior, I don't want to, you know, say her name, but before her not having that YouTube channel, nobody would have known about her work. It would have just stayed on her laptop. Now it's going on a public forum where she's sharing all this amazing content. And of course, when UCAS, Common App, or any other university application platform is looking for the student's name and any work that they've done, you know, they can just Google her name, like I can do with you. I can look up Maria Vitoratos and I can see your YouTube channel and all of the amazing spotlight talks that you've done for DESC Careers, for the UAE Careers community, and also for #Strong. And that's the same, you know, that's the sort of thing that we are encouraging our students to do.
Amazing. Anya, I'm just over the moon. I think our students are just so lucky to have you. So much that you've taught us, and bringing the guests that you've brought to Project 13.5 has just been incredible. As we're wrapping this up, can you give us a couple of words of wisdom, things that you know will be those golden nuggets to take us on the next journey post-DESC?
Okay, with your personal branding, I would suggest that you be your most authentic self in terms of producing content and using social media as a way to drive your career forward and open yourself up to new opportunities. Is be consistent. You know, writing one post or article or producing one video is not enough to nourish your personal brand. In order for your personal brand to grow online, you need to be consistent. And that's it from me. So be authentic and try to be consistent.
Incredible. Authenticity and consistency, definitely words that I'm going to be taking on my personal branding mission. Thank you so much, Anya. That was Miss Svrdlin, our very own teacher of media and media guru here at Dubai English Speaking College. And this brings our personal branding series of workshops and talks to an incredible finish. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week when we bring another incredible guest to our DESC Careers Digital Spotlight.